welcome, get comfortable and all that. As my school semester comes to an end, I have been given the option to make a book recommendation for my final project. And am I one to pass up the opportunity to talk about my favorite book ever? No, I'm not. The Spirit vs. Teeth by Andrew Joseph White is a gothic thriller set in an alternative Victorian era where people with purple eyes can interact with the veil and the spirits kept beneath it. It follows Silas Bell, an autistic trans boy with purple eyes and an affinity for surgery, as he tries to escape his fate of being married off and exploited. And then the sanatorium he's thrown into for being veil sick. I do not exaggerate at all when I say this is my favorite book of all time, which might say more about me than the book itself because it pulls no punches. It's very messy and gritty, and a lot like the time period it's based on, no amount of lace or porcelain can cover up the blood seeping from the center. Now, before you consider reading The Spirit vs. Teeth, I do implore you, please read the content warnings. As much as I love this book, it's absolutely not for everyone. A.J. White tackles topics such as physical and sexual assault, forced pregnancy, suicidal ideation, and transphobia and other general Victorian-era bigotry. It also contains strong language, graphic violence, and medical gore. If any of these turn you away from this book, there's no shame in keeping yourself safe. If you are able to endure the topics, I could not recommend this book enough. There's so much I could say about this book, how it just seemed to fit perfectly in my heart, how it unlocked a love for history I hadn't entirely considered before. In The Spirit vs. Teeth, despite the fantasy and alternate reality elements, it still includes facts from real history. Like James Barry, a transgender surgeon who pioneered changes in the treatment of women's health and is a big part of queer history. He's mentioned a handful of times over the course of the book and is a source of inspiration for Silas. It actually kind of kills me when he's first mentioned because because Silas says in narration, let's see. No, that's not it. Okay, I'm just reading from my script. Did you know that someone like me had once been a surgeon? It sounds like a myth, but it's true. His name was James Barry. George told me about him when I was young, offhandedly, as if he knew something about me that I didn't. Actually, makes me want to cry a bit, not gonna lie. That's kind of how the whole book feels, really. Makes me want to cry a bit. And the best part is, you'll have tons of different reasons to cry. Like Daphne. I love Daphne. She's amazing. These two freaking lines every time. A boy-born boy could not recognize what I am. Of course her name is Daphne. What? Dude. Wonderful, wonderful. Applause. Applause. So cute. Those two lines hit me so hard every single time. This book actually turns me into a shaking mess. So if you want that reaction to a book, I think you know what I'll recommend. Sorry. Almost like I'm making a video recommending it. Crazy. But other times you'll want to cry over very, very different things. Like, say, George, Silas's brother, hurting Silas in his attempt to help both his wife and Silas. Page 115. Oh my god. It's important for a caregiver to be skeptical of what a sick girl says. No! Stop it! Breaks me every single time I read it. So yeah. if you want to be shattered, there you go. And I've gone way too long without mentioning the characters. I love how the characters are written. A.J. White writes characters that display the effects of the trauma they've gone through, and, like, really well. Even though they're secondary characters, this idea of this perfect victim is explored through Charlotte and Mary, and this idea of which trauma is more valid, whether you are complicit and desperately try to appease your abuser and end up losing your parts of yourself in that appeasement, or if you fight back with tooth and nail to the point where you turn your anger and fear onto others. They mean so much to me, actually. I've done a few character dives into them on my own time, just for funsies, because they are incredibly written, and I feel so much for them, because they aren't good people. The things they do are not okay. But they are, in a way, justified. I'll let you come to your conclusions on the characters. But one last thing about this book is, and it's completely unrelated to the story itself, at the end, A.J. White includes sources readers can dive into about the non-fictional cruelty of the Victorian era, while acknowledging that The Spirit Wears Its Teeth is not completely accurate, that history is often more horrific than a novel. He recommends people read Medical Apartheid, The Dark History of Medical Experimentation on Black Americans from Colonial Times to the Present by Harriet A. Washington, and Medical Bondage, Race, Gender, and the Origins of American Gynecology by Deirdre Cooper Owens. I've not read either of those books yet, but it makes me unreasonably happy seeing an author actually acknowledging the past, especially on topics such as these, where medical harm and malpractice is very much still going on and damaging communities, and we should be talking about that. So TLDR, basically, or TLDW, I'm not funny. Read The Spirit Wears Its Teeth. You will not regret it. I love this book.